creating a backdrop. In this video, we're going to decide on a scale of our project that we're working on. We're going to create a basic environment for our lamp. So up until this point, we've just been making models in isolation. I suppose the chess set, the pieces had an environment to be in, which was the chessboard, but the chess set itself didn't really have, it wasn't on a table in a room, etc. So we're going to create an environment for our lamp to be in, and we're going to run through a couple of options with that, and you can pick either one. This is an artistic choice rather than an exact choice of right or wrong. You can do whatever you like. You can even produce some steps if you like, but I'm going to keep it simple in this. So let's hop over into Blender. So in Blender, we've got our default cube here, and we don't want this. What we want to do is get rid of that, so we will go ahead and delete that from our scene. After we've removed the default cube, we'll want to add ourselves a plane. Now notice the 3D cursor is all the way up here, so I'm going to recenter that first with Shift and C. There we go. So now that the 3D cursor is there, we can add ourselves a plane. And I'm just going to scale that up so it's nice and large so we can work on it. Now, when we position our lamp and move it later on, I'm literally going to, it's going to be a 3D object, but thinking ahead, we're just going to move it along a 2D path. We're probably going to move it along the x-axis and make it hop or something along there. Haven't quite worked out the moves yet. So, that's a basic floor, but of course it's a basic floor. We don't want a basic floor, we want an environment for it to be in. So the next thing we can do is just grab this end edge over here. So hop into edit mode and select this edge here. I'm going to extrude on the Z axis and just lift that up. Now that produces a lovely corner for us to work on. Now with corners you generally get some harsh shadows. Let's quickly hop over into rendered mode and just see how that's going to come out. You can see there's well, hopefully you can see it's a bit dark around here, but there's a harsh line there. And you'll generally get shadows casting against that, and they'll usually be quite harsh. So that helps define an edge of a room. However, if you wanted it to be a bit smoother, then we can have what's almost like a studio backdrop. And a simple way of doing that is using the bevel tool. However, we're going to bevel it slightly differently. We're not just going to bevel this edge here. We're going to add another one along this x-axis. So if we select, well, if we do Control and R and pop a loop cut along here, and just shift that back ever so slightly, maybe 2 blending units. 1, 2, you can see on the grid there. Only roughly, it doesn't matter at this stage the exact thing, and we can alter this later on. Whilst we're here, I'm going to rename our plane backdrop. Must be consistent with this. Now, when we select this edge here, we can go and bevel that with Control and B, and as you can see there, when we've put this line in here, and the reason that line's there is because the bevel will stop at that point. Excellent. So then we can add a couple of segments in, doesn't matter how many, that's probably enough. Hop back over into object mode and set it to smooth shading, and it looks pretty smooth there. And although the render isn't that great at the moment, if we move around in rendered mode, that looks pretty smooth to me as well. Of course, if you need it higher, more geometry there, you can add a few more cuts in, but I think that's absolutely fine. So the final thing to decide here is scale that we're working on. Now if I hop back on over into the solid render, this backdrop is infinitely scalable now, so we can select that at any time and just scale it along its x-axis and drag it out infinitely. So that's absolutely fine, but the scale of the lamp itself. Now I think we should work with the lamp to 1 blender unit. It's going to be a big lamp. If that was a real lamp, that'll be approximately 1 meter across. But again, I like dealing with whole numbers, and I think 1's a great starting point for it. And at the end, once we've produced it, if we wanted it to have a, let's say, 30 centimeter base rather than a meter base, then we can just scale it down by a factor of 0.3, and the whole lamp would reduce down to the appropriate size. Now, since we're not dealing with physics or anything along those that at the moment. Its physicality, its size, its weight, etc. Don't really matter. As long as we get the impression that it's a lamp and it's animating, if we stick to the core principles that we're going to be working on, I think a base of 1 would be brilliant. So we'll go for that. And now I've got a challenge for you. Okay guys, it's challenge time. I would like you to create your stage. So go ahead and create a backdrop ready for the lamp. Now you can choose whether to have a sharp corner. You can make it a bit more funky if you want, but do keep where the lamp is moving absolutely flat. Add in a placeholder primitive. Just so you can get an idea of scale within there. Just leave it as a default 1 radius for the moment. Okay, hop over into Blender, give that a go now, pause the video, and I will see you in a second. Okay guys, welcome back. Let's finish off our stage. So let's hop back over into Blender. So I'm quite happy with the stage that I already have here. I am going to make it just a little bit wider, so I am going to scale it along the x-axis by 2. So I'm just going to make it twice as wide, so I know that if we look at it from an angle, we're probably going to be okay. So let's add in our placeholder. So I'm going to add in lots of choices here, a cylinder or a cone. So which one of these shall I go for? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Oh, a cone. That sounds good to me. So we're going to have to lift that out of the floor. It's got a depth of 2, so let's lift it up on the z-axis by 1. There we go, so that's definitely on the floor now. And finally, we just need to make sure that's 1 Blender unit across and not 2, because it's got a radius of 1. It's actually going to be 2 across. So we'll put a radius of 0.5. Let's sort that out. Okay, let's just see how that looks in rendered mode. Take it through to there. Excellent. It's not a very good lighting at the moment. I think in the next lecture we can sort that out. So how did you guys get on? What sort of background did you go for? Share in the discussions, and I will see you in the next lecture.